So good morning students. So in last class we discussed breathing and exchange of gases, in which how to oxygen and carbon dioxide which are exchanged in between body and environment. So as the ending there is three disorders. Just you recall that asthma, emphysema and occupational disorders, which are all related to respiration, difficulty to breathing, as that is emphysema. It is caused by more smoking, that is cigarette smoking. During cigarette smoking, the carbon monoxide which decrease the respiratory area of the alveoli as it caused. So as that today we discussed that is body fluids and circulation, that is chapter number 18. In chapter number 18, body fluids and those body fluids which circulate in the body. So as students, so early morning we can take breakfast. After it is digested, after digested those breakfast, the digested molecules, that is the food molecules, which reach different cells. So those food molecules which are digested in digestive system of organism, from which the digested food molecules which reached different locations, or the cells located in different locations of the body. As in all organisms, there is no specialized system for those transporting. For example, while you take in coelacanths, the food is digested in gastrovascular cavity. That gastrovascular cavity, which consists a line of cells in which the digestion is extracellular out of that, but those cells which helps to circulate, that is the nutrients by easily, that is the body surface which helps, that is the inner lining of gastrointestinal cavity. But in higher organisms, there is a different types of fluids, the fluids which helps to transmit the either nutrients, either gaseous constituent, either hormones, either enzymes, like these different which are transmit one part of body to another part, that is in the body they helps to transmit these nutrients, gaseous constituents, hormones, enzymes, which are all transported. So as even in the higher organisms like in human, also there are two types of fluids, those body fluids which helps to transmit transport the nutrients, and that is the gaseous constituent by, that is the blood and lymph. The blood and lymph are the two important types of fluids which are present in the body. So even in our body, extracellular fluid which is also present in that, it is also helps to transmit certain amount of hormones in the body. So in this chapter, we discussed the body fluids, that is blood and lymph. So as you know that the blood is a fluid connective tissue. Blood is fluid connective tissue. So the blood which connects different types of tissue, as the name, that is connective tissue. It is in the form of fluid nature. So those, a specialized tissue, a fluid connective tissue, that is the blood, which helps to transmit the nutrients and gaseous constituents in the body. So we know that about the blood. So the blood, which is a fluid connective tissue in which it consists two important components, that is, one is the fluid matrix present in the blood. That fluid matrix is a plasma. Another one is the formed elements. The formed elements. In the formed elements which constitute RBCs, WBCs and platelets. So these are formed elements. The plasma is one of the fluid matrix. These both components which are present in the blood. So what is plasma? Here, as we know that 55% of blood consists plasma. That is, the blood contains 55% of plasma. So these plasma, which is straw-colored fluid, that straw-colored fluid, straw is nothing but little bit a dry grass colored. So these plasma, which consists nearly 90 to 92% of water. In the entire plasma, more than 90 to 92% of water present in that plasma, and even there is presence of nearly 6 to 8% of proteins. So very important in the concept of CET NEET. So in which there is the presence of different types of proteins and the concentration of water. More than 90% there is must and should presence of water, because the plasma is present in the fluidity nature or fluid nature. So as it consists the different types of proteins like that is fibrinogen, albumins and globulins. Fibrinogen, albumins and globulins. As the fibrinogen is inactivate form, it converted by the enzyme by the thrombokinase. It helps to clotting of blood. So as it convert fibrins, the proteins of plasma, presence of fibrinogen, it helps to clotting of a clotting factor or clotting protein also. The albumins which helps to maintain osmotic balance. So osmotic balance of the blood, as the albumins which helps to maintain osmotic balance. As globulins, another important protein present in the plasma, which involved in immune response of the body. Immune response of the body, like antibodies. All the antibodies are immunoglobulins. There are different types of immunoglobulins. There are 5 types of immunoglobulins. So those are all globulins which responds to immune system of our body. As these different types of proteins which are present in the plasma. The plasma is a fluid matrix. So after there is presence of formed elements, that formed elements are RBCs, that is red blood corpuscles, RBCs, the red blood corpuscles, WBCs, that is white blood corpuscles, and platelets, which are also called as thrombocytes. So these are the formed elements. So we discussed one by one. So here just we discussed first, that is RBC, that is red blood corpuscles. So the red blood corpuscles are maybe of disc shaped. So disc shaped cells and unucleated cells, unucleated or devoid of nucleus. So means in human the RBC cells are absence of nucleus or devoid of nucleus or unucleated. There is no nucleus in the RBC. So these RBC, which consist a specialized a protein called hemoglobin is present. Hemoglobin. So these hemoglobin, which gives red colored. So as presence of hemoglobin, the RBCs are red colored nature. So in the absence of hemoglobin, may be of different, that is white color. So the WBCs in which hemoglobin is absent, hence those are white colored. So RBCs are that is the which gives the red color for the blood, as the blood is a red colored fluid, a red colored connective tissue due to presence of hemoglobin. So these hemoglobin, in which heme is iron containing, heme is iron, globin is protein. That is, hemoglobin is iron containing protein. Hemoglobin is iron containing protein. It gives red colored nature. So in which 12 to 16 grams, so nearly 12 grams of hemoglobin present in 100 ml of blood. In 100 ml of blood, there is presence of nearly more than 12 grams are required. That is 12 to 16 grams which are present in the 100 ml of blood. So these RBCs, the lifespan is 120 days. So very important, 120 days. After 120 days, the RBC cells are dead. After death of these RBCs, there is a spleen. Spleen is graveyard of RBC. Spleen is graveyard of RBC. That is nothing but the RBC cells are destroyed by spleen. In the spleen, they are divided, they are destroyed. So after 120 days. So after the next one, that is WBCs. So in the WBCs, there are two important types of WBCs. Those are granulocytes and agranulocytes. Granulocytes and agranulocytes. The granulocytes are once again three types. Those are neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. Neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. The neutrophils which presents more in the granulocytes. So these WBCs, especially absence of hemoglobin, which involved in immune response or so these the lifespan of WBC is very less, that is nearly 13 to 20 days. 13 to 20 days. But these are all eliminated by which are only through the lymphatic system or lymph capillaries, they are disappeared. As granulocytes are the three types: neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. So these WBCs which consist large nucleus, but here the nucleus is irregular shape. Large and irregular shaped nucleus present in the WBCs, as in case of these are also. So the neutrophils, these neutrophils which are present nearly 60 to 62%. The eosinophils which are 2 to 3%. The basophils which are 0.5 to 1% of total constituents in the agranulocytes. So here, while the functioning, the neutrophils which are involved in phagocytic nature, eosinophils which helps to immune response, as the basophils which secrete different types of chemicals like histamine, heparin, just a mosquito bit on the skin. Suddenly, certain inflammation occurred in such part. Suddenly, a swelling due to secretion of these chemicals. So, like there are three types of agranulocytes: neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils, which are working. Neutrophils are helps to phagocytic nature, photoimmune phagocytic. Here, phagocytic, which is nothing but if sometimes certain infections which enter into the body, those microbes which directly killed by these neutrophils. So eosinophils which helps to resist infection resistance for basophils which provide inflammatory chemicals, that is histamine, heparin, which are produced by these basophils. So as another one, that is agranulocytes. The agranulocytes are of two types, that is lymphocytes and monocytes. Lymphocytes and monocytes. The lymphocytes are of two types, that is B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes, which both involved in immune response of our body. So majorly the diseases which are cured due to production of antibodies by involvement of these two lymphocytes. So monocytes is also involved in immune response like it is also phagocytic nature. Monocytes are neutrophils which involved in phagocytic nature. So like that is RBCs and WBCs. So here just the RBCs which is present nearly 5 to 5.5 million cells per 1 mm cube. So WBCs which are present, that is nearly 6,000 to 8,000 cells per mm cube. So as the last, that is the platelets. The platelets are nothing but, which are also called as thrombocytes. These thrombocytes which helps in clotting of blood. So the platelets count, that is in the healthy individual's blood 1,50,000 to 3,50,000 cells per mm cube of blood. So these, the platelets which helps in blood clot, due to which has clotting factors. The number of clotting factors are there: clotting factor 8, 9, 11, 12, like different types of clotting factors which helps to blood clot. Absence of blood, these clotting factors in the plasma, which is called as serum. So if in the plasma, absence of these clotting factors, which is called as serum. So in absence of these clotting factors, there is continuous bleeding of blood when we wounded. So the blood clotting is one of the boon for our life. So because of, at the time of anyway, while just we fallen, a breakage of a skill, there is blood bleeding, a ooze out of blood. So that is within a short time, there is a red colored scum is formed. It is nothing but blood clot. So by the help of clotting factor, so we discussed in this chapter the later. So these fluid matrix and formed elements, that is plasma and these contents which totally present in the components of blood. So as commonly the components, 4 components of blood: plasma, RBCs, WBCs and platelets. So these red colored fluid which helps to transmit the food, nutrients, gaseous constituents, hormones, enzymes, which transmit from one cell to another cell, or from one part of the body to another part of the body. So another one is the lymph. Lymph is a colorless fluid. Lymph is colorless fluid. Why it is colorless fluid? Due to absence of hemoglobin. Absence of hemoglobin. So even these colorless fluid, that is the lymph, which is secreted in the blood capillaries. For example, it is a blood vessel. While transmit of blood, certain amount of blood contents which oozes out, which diffuses out due to diffusion concentration gradient. Certain amount of blood, except blood proteins, it's very important. So the blood proteins which not diffuse through the walls of these blood vessels. So even the most of the plasma, only certain amount of proteins which diffused out. So those fluid which collected in between the cells. So already cells मध्ये tissues मध्ये collect ಆಗಿರತಕ್ಕಂತ fluid. So these fluid which entered into the fine tips of capillaries of those blood vessels, which are commonly called as that is blood capillaries, are considered the lymphatic system, or that is lymphatic capillaries. So which collect the lymph and which transmit towards the body part. So even the lymph is also helps to transmit the certain amount of nutrients and hormones. So as those lymph which has collected in the lymph nodes, as the lymph nodes, lymphatic organs, lymph capillaries, which are all provided, that is secondary response in the immune system of our body. So as just we discussed, that is circulatory system. So in the circulatory system, in human, it consists heart, blood vessels, and blood. So what we define first: heart, blood vessels, blood, which is included in the circulatory system. So as we discussed, that is in the human circulatory system, in human body there is transmission of nutrients, gaseous constituents, which is first discovered by William Harvey. William Harvey, who discovered the circulatory system in human, hence he has called as coulombs of circulatory system. So he only defined, that is how the circulation occurs in the body by the help of the blood circulate through the blood vessels by the help of heart. So just we discussed the structure of heart, that is human heart. As heart is a muscular organ, heart is made up with a special set of muscles, that is cardiac muscles. Heart is made up with a special set of muscles called cardiac muscles, which is also called as nodal tissue. The nodal tissue, which involved in preparation or the formation of the entire human heart. That is a layer called pericardium. So as while we define the structure of before that, there is a little bit heart, we identified two-chambered heart, two-chambered heart in fishes. In fishes, there is presence of two-chambered heart, in which the two chambers are one atrium, one auricle. One atrium and one auricle. One atrium, one atrium and one auricle. So the two-chambered heart which is present in the vertebrates like fishes. As three-chambered heart identified in amphibians and even reptiles, but in the reptiles except crocodile. So except crocodile, of the reptiles and all amphibians which possess three-chambered heart. In these three-chambered heart there is two atria and one auricle. So, but in two-chambered heart, easily atrium which collect the deoxygenated blood, auricle which supply the oxygenated blood. But these three-chambered heart, in which presence of two auricle, presence of two atria, only one auricle, in which the right atrium which collect the deoxygenated blood, the left atrium which collect the oxygenated blood, at the time of contraction of these atria, both send the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood into the auricle. The auricle supply to the body, that is mixed blood. The mixed blood is supplied by in the three-chambered heart, which consists, that is, amphibians and reptiles. So another one, that is four-chambered heart. Four-chambered heart. It consists even, that is, crocodile, aves and mammals. So all these which possess four-chambered heart. In those four-chambered heart, there is presence of two auricles, two ventricles, that is two atria, two ventricles. As it collects the right atrium collect to the deoxygenated blood, right ventricle collect to the deoxygenated blood, it supplied to the lungs. Left atrium collect to the pure blood, which send it towards the left atrium. From the left atrium, it will be pumping. So we discussed that next to that is how it is four-chambered heart. So example, that is human heart. In human heart, what we discussed, that is four-chambered heart. So just see the diagram. In this diagram, it is the four-chambered heart. In the four-chambered heart, upper two are atria. It is right atrium, it is left atrium. In these four chambers, the upper two chambers are smaller, the lower two chambers are a little bit larger. The upper two chambers are atria, lower two chambers are, that is, ventricles. Here, both ventricles and both atria, which are separated by a wall. So here there is presence of wall. This wall is called as interatrial septum. That is interatrial septum. Idu one atrium, idu one atrium. Ee eradu atrium which separated by a tissue, that is a wall called interatrial wall. So as lower two chambers, that is little bit larger. These two larger chambers which are called as ventricles. The atrium and auricle, sorry, ventricle. Two ventricles, it is atrium, it is ventricle. The atrium and ventricle, which is separated by a wall, so it is completely wall. So it is the wall. It is called as atrioventricular wall. That is nothing but these walls are septum which separate atrium from ventricles. Atrium from ventricles. So this entire part, it is covered with two-layered, double-layered pericardium. The double-layered pericardium, which is made up with anodal tissue. So, in between these two layers, there is also presence of pericardial fluid. So these in between two layers, pericardial fluid is there. It helps to prevent the friction. So because continuous pumping the blood by the auricles, ventricles or atrium and ventricles which prevent during which those muscles in which there is production of heat. So the friction is prevented by presence of pericardial fluid in between the two walls of pericardium walls around the heart. But as we consider the walls of atrium or auricle and ventricle, it is little bit, the thickness is different. The atrium wall is little bit thin in nature than ventricle. So ventricles, which are made up with thick walls, atrium, which are made up with little bit thin walls. So why means the ventricles which pump the blood towards the entire body part, even towards the lungs. But the atria, while its systole, while it is contract, it pumping the blood just from here to here, that is atrium to ventricle. So as even the wall of right atrium and left atrium is also variant. The right ventricle, which is thin in nature, the walls of right atrium thinner than left one. It is nothing but the walls of left ventricle, it is little bit thicker than right one, because the right ventricle which supply the blood, which pump the blood only towards the lungs. It is little bit above the heart, or just beside the lateral sides of this heart, because heart is located in between two lungs. So as short distance it will be pumping. But the left ventricle, which pump the oxygenated blood towards the entire body part from toe to head. So as it required, which give more pressure, the left ventricle, which consists thick body walls. As structurally, there is a patch of tissue is there. The patch of tissue here, it is the SAL, it is the ABL. SAL is nothing but sinoatrial node. It is nothing but a patch of tissue, sinoatrial node, which helps to organize, initiate the systole of these heart muscles, contraction of heart muscles. sinoatrial node which is located, that is left side of right atrium only, there is upper. Left side, upper side, there is SAN, there is sinoatrial node is there. It initiates the systolic of atrium. As another patch of tissue present, the same in the right atrium, there is left side downward, there is presence of in the carbonature, a patch of tissue is there. This patch of tissue which is helps to transmit the signals of these right atrium to all the ventricles. So as like the SAN, it is helps to initiation of that is systolic nature or contraction of muscles of this heart. Those at the time of contraction, those signals which are circulate as like in the wavy nature, while we put a stone on the water, how the waves are encircled around the spot of a stone fall on the water. So those waves which are reached here, that is the avian. Avian is nothing but atrioventricular node, because it is present on the atrium, but it supplies the signals towards the that is the ventricles. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸಿಗ್ನಲ್ಸ್ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಆ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಈ ಕಿಲೋಬಲೋಡ್ ಪ್ಯಾಚ್ ಆಫ್ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ. ನೀವು ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಕಾಣಬಹುದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್. So from this avian, there is arising of a nerve fiber, very important. See here, these nerve fibers, which is called Purkinje fibers. So these Purkinje fibers, that fiber originate from the avian and it circulate entirely both ventricles. So here these fiber which are divided, and one branch which moves towards the left ventricle, another branch which moves towards the right ventricle. So these branches are that is Purkinje fibers, which helps to mediate or transmit the signals. See here, once the atrium is contract, that contract signal which transmit towards the ventricle, after that ventricle is contract, due to it get the signals from these. As both are not same at a time, they are systole, that is atrium and ventricle. First atrium is systole, next ventricle is systole. But after slowly both are coming to a resting position. So that is what in one cardiac cycle it can take nearly 8 seconds. So as even there is presence of a number of papillary structures which are organizing. So these are the that is tendinae, like the muscles which attach the. There is a valve present in between, that is right atrium and right ventricle, left atrium and left ventricle. So here those there is a pore, this pore which connected right atrium to right ventricle. So these four which guarded by 3 flaps. These flaps are muscular flaps. So these muscular flaps which are guarded these 4, hence it is called that is tricuspid valve. There is presence of tricuspid valve in between right atrium and right ventricle. So in the meanwhile, say in the left side, that is left atrium, in between left atrium and left ventricle, it is also there is a pore. It is guarded by 2 muscular flaps, or which are also called as cusps. Hence it is that is bicuspid valve. Bicuspid valve. So these bicuspid valve which is present in between, that is left atrium and left ventricle. So there is organizing the blood vessels. The blood vessels are of importantly three types, that is arteries, veins and capillaries. As you know that the complete structure of these human heart. So the blood vessels, arteries are nothing but which carry the blood towards the heart. Carry blood towards the heart. As the veins carry blood from the heart. Heart ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ So arteries which carry blood from the heart. Arteries carry the blood from the heart. The veins carry blood towards the heart. So the capillaries are nothing but the end branches of arteries and veins. Like there is three set of blood vessels: arteries, veins and capillaries, as the blood we discussed already. Next, a cardiac cycle. Cardiac cycle, it is nothing but one atrial systole, one ventricular systole, and atrioventricular diastole. So here the entire cardiac cycle, one atrial systole, that is contraction of atrium. During contraction of atrium, there is a deoxygenated blood and oxygenated blood which pump towards the ventricles. And one ventricular systole, here also there is contraction of those ventricles. At the time of ventricles contraction, deoxygenated blood pumped by right atrium towards the lungs, oxygenated blood which pump towards the body parts through the aorta. After a little bit time, both are comes to normal position, that is both atrioventricular diastole, both atrium and both ventricular comes to relaxation, that is diastole, which is complete in within 0.8 seconds. So that is nothing but a heart which pumped nearly 70 to 75 times. It is normally 72 times, that is usual. So at the time of one atrial systole which set the volume of blood pumped by atrium per one systole, per one systole or one atrial systole, it is nearly, that is 70 ml of blood. So it is nothing but once a atrium which pumped, which systole, which contract, which pump the 70 ml of blood from atrium to ventricle through the tricuspid valve. So at the time of these 70 ml, which is what we are called as that is stroke volume of blood. Stroke volume of blood. So here it is nothing but stroke volume, that is it is 70 ml of blood. So during one cardiac cycle per 1 minute, so that is nothing but the entire cardiac cycles per minute, that is 72 times. It is nothing but a cardiac output is stroke volume multiplied by number of heartbeats. Number of heartbeats in 1 minute. In 1 minute. So that is nothing but the stroke volume is 70 and the number of heartbeats usually 72. So while we calculate nearly 5040 ml of blood pumped per 1 minute. So these 5040 ml is nothing but nearly 5 liters of 5 liters of blood which is pumped by one ventricle. One ventricle. So within 1 minute, the one ventricle which pumping the 5 liters of blood. So don't confuse, that much of blood is not present in our body. So nearly 6 to 6.5 liters of amount of blood present in our body. The same components of the blood is continuously pumping by those. Because what the blood pumped, which oxygenated blood reach the cells, once again it is moved as a deoxygenated blood into the heart. The same blood which moves repeat and repeat again. So as it is in one cardiac cycle is nothing but that is one atrial systole, one ventricular systole, and both are diastole. So it can take nearly 0.8 seconds. So for one heartbeat, which pump the 70 ml of blood. So usually a adult heart which beats nearly 72 times or normally 70 to 75 times, it usually reaches 72. So that is at the time of one heartbeat, what is the amount of blood which is pumping, that volume what we call as stroke volume, that is 70 ml. So in total 72 heartbeats, it is multiplied the stroke volume, it is what we are called as cardiac output per 1 minute. Cardiac output is nothing but the stroke volume and number of heartbeats in 1 minute. So that is 5040 ml of blood. So next, blood circulation. Blood groups. So little bit. So before that, there is a blood groups. So before we go to blood circulation, just there are two blood groups are there. There are two types of blood groups, that is ABO blood groups and RH blood groups. RH grouping. So, because it is little bit important for the CET purpose. In the blood groups, the ABO blood groups, there are 4 types of blood groups. Blood group A, blood group B, blood group AB, blood group O. What are the components? So here there is presence of antigens. A antigen present on the RBC's surface of blood cell. Surface of blood cell, there is different types of antigens. If presence of A antigen, that is nothing but the blood group A, in which there is presence of antibodies. The antibody that is anti-B. Anti-B antibody is present in the blood group A. Blood group B, there is presence of same B antigen but anti-A, antibody A. In the AB blood group, presence of both A and B antibody antigens are present, but the antigens are nil. In O blood group, both are absent, but there is presence of anti-A and anti-B. So both are present. So depend upon these, just we decided based on presence of antigen, we decided the blood groups. Antigen A present in A blood group, antigen B present in the B blood group, antigen A and antigen B both are present, both are homozygous condition, so there is presence of AB blood group, but any type of antigens are absent in the O blood group, the blood of O blood group. So Karl Landsteiner, who identified these blood groups, Karl Landsteiner, who discovered the blood groups. See here, RH is another antigen. Another antigen present in blood, like rhesus monkey. Right? Rhesus monkeys. So rhesus monkeys are ಯಾವ ತರ antigen ಇದೆಯೋ ಅದೇ ತರದ antigen even present in the more than 80% of human. 80% of human who has RH antigen, who is called as RH positive person. RH positive person who lack these RH antigen, who are called RH negative person. So at the time of blood transfusion is also identified these RH factors. So because these RH positive or RH negative factors who is coincide, both are mixed, which cause little bit disorder called the disorder present in the children, that is erythroblastosis totalis, erythroblastosis totalis, which kill the most of erythrocytes, most of the erythrocytes. So as just here, the RH positive male who marry RH negative woman, RH positive male who marry RH negative female, while in the progeny or offspring obtained by these, It is must and should Rh positive person. But these Rh positive person who is present in the mother's womb. There is Rh positive person. It is the offspring which is present in the female body. But in the female body, in the first pregnancy, it does not cause more effect to the child, but it does not cause any damage to the erythrocytes of baby. But in the female body, there is antibodies which are secreted in the female body. But those antibodies which does not damage the first pregnancy. At the same time, next that is there is once again second pregnancy, but same Rh positive because the positive person male. These previously there is presence of antibodies. These antibodies which mixed with Rh positive baby, during which there is a coagulation, these antibodies which kill the erythrocytes of baby who caused a disease called erythrofoetalis blastocyst. Erythrofoetalis blastocyst or erythrofoetalis blastocyst here, in which erythrocytes are damaged. So for these there is a within 72 hours of baby born. So to take Rh gamma proteins injected to the baby will safer side. So otherwise it causes little bit, that is jaundice, or what the disease called erythroblastosis fetalis. So next coagulation of blood. So coagulation of blood. So previously just we discussed that is clotting of blood is a boon of living organisms which helps to bleeding of overbleeding of blood due to clotting, that is coagulation of blood. So coagulation of blood, it is nothing but clotting of that is blood clotting. During blood clotting, if a wound is formed on the skin, the damaged tissue it secretes enzyme called thrombokinase. These thrombokinase which helps to prothrombin converted into thrombin also helps to, that is calcium ions. The prothrombin which is inactivate condition, it converts the thrombin The thrombin helps to fibrinogen protein which converted into fibrils. The fibrils are insoluble. The fibrinogen is soluble protein. The soluble protein converted into insoluble fibrils. These fibril threads which helps to make it a network like a mesh like structures which continuously formed. A red colored scum is formed. That red colored scum which prevent the overflow of blood. That is coagulation of blood. So next that is little bit double circulation. Double circulation. Because heart is double pumping organ. Heart is double pumping organ. So same amount of same type of blood which pumps 2 times by the heart, because it pumps once deoxygenated blood, the same deoxygenated blood is converted into oxygenated. The oxygenated blood it is once again pumping, hence the heart is double pumping organ. Here, just you see the diagram, it is a heart. The heart pumps the deoxygenated blood towards the lungs. Heart pumps the deoxygenated blood towards the lungs. From the lungs, the deoxygenated blood releases the carbon dioxide into the lungs in the alveolar part. From the alveoli, it accepted the carbon dioxide as we discussed that is gaseous exchange. It converted as an oxygenated blood. The oxygenated blood which entered into the left atrium. The oxygenated blood from the right atrium moves towards the lungs, and from the lungs there is the oxygenated blood entered into left atrium. So this circulation, what we are called as pulmonary circulation. So it is first circulation out of these 2 circulations, double circulation. The first one is pulmonary circulation. So in the pulmonary circulation, the right atrium pumps the deoxygenated blood towards the lungs. From the lungs, oxygenated blood entered into the left atrium. So the oxygenated blood into left atrium, which pump the blood towards the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, which pump the same oxygenated blood towards the body tissues. From the body tissues, it releases the oxygen concentration, oxygen content, and it accepts the carbon dioxide content. It converted as the deoxygenated blood from the body parts, which move towards the right atrium, along with that is superior vena cava and inferior vena cava present in the, which collect the impure blood or deoxygenated blood in the right atrium. As this circulation, which is called as that is systemic circulation. Pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation, these are the 2 types of circulations. That is the double circulation, that is the heart is pumped the same amount of blood, same type of blood 2 times. That's why heart is called as that is double pumping organ. So pulmonary circulation, that is nothing but deoxygenated collected from the right atrium, which send the lungs send the oxygenated blood, which is entered into the left atrium through the pulmonary veins. From the left atrium, the oxygenated blood entered into left ventricle, left ventricle systole or which pump the blood through the aorta which send the oxygenated blood towards the body parts. From the body parts, superior vena cava and inferior vena cava both collect the deoxygenated blood from the body which entered into the right atrium. This circulation it is called as double circulation. So these are the two types of blood circulations. So regulation of cardiac activity. And disorders of circulation, only the two topics. So how the regulation of heart activity? So here a neural center for regulation of heart, it is present on medulla oblongata. So the medulla oblongata, it is present in the hindbrain. The brain divided into forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. In the hindbrain, pons, cerebellum, medulla oblongata is there. That medulla oblongata, it continues as a spinal cord. On the medulla oblongata, there is presence of a neural center. So these medulla oblongata will send the message to modify the heartbeat. So as the medulla oblongata will send the signals through the nerves of autonomous nervous system. Autonomous nervous system, that is ANS. As we know that the ANS, it consists of two components, that is sympathetic nerves and parasympathetic nerves. Sympathetic nerves and parasympathetic nerves. These medulla oblongata which increase the heartbeat by the help of sympathetic nerves. For example, just we are walking on the road. Suddenly there is an arising of snake. So we ran away from the snake. So as at the time of while we ran, the muscles which need more oxygen, then the heart which pump the more blood, because of the blood carries oxygen. So that sudden increasing by heartbeat by the neural signal from the medulla oblongata through the sympathetic nerves of autonomous nervous system. So after away from the body of organism, which away from that snake, that is automatically comes slow down the heartbeats. That slow down heartbeat by neural signals from the medulla oblongata, which send the signals through the another component of this autonomous nervous system, that is parasympathetic nerves, which brought the signals from the medulla oblongata to reduce the heartbeats of that time, as it is little bit that is the regulation of cardiac activity by the help of neural center present on medulla oblongata. Even sometimes that is adrenal medullary hormones. Adrenal medullary hormones, which are also modified. So that is nothing but already we discussed, that is emergency hormones, adrenaline and noradrenaline. So these which maintain at the time of emergency time, that is fight and flight, during which these hormones are adrenal medullary hormones, which are also modify the heartbeats of heart, as like both which are involved in the regulation of cardiac activity. So there are three disorders: coronary, artery diseases, another one is high blood pressure. Another one is angina and heart failure. Coronary artery diseases is nothing but a special set of blood vessels which supply blood to heart muscles. So heart is pumping the blood all parts of body. Even heart muscles are also require the blood, that is the nutrients. The blood which supply the nutrients towards the heart muscles, those special set of blood vessels called coronary arteries. So coronary artery diseases which is arising due to not supply of enough blood to the heart muscles. Heart muscles those disease it is called as coronary artery diseases due to malfunctioning, due to cholesterol content, due to fat content, due to calcium content, which is deposited in the coronary artery blood vessels. A set of blood vessels, coronary blood vessels. So another one is high BP, that is high blood pressure. So the normal blood pressure is 120 by 80. 120 by 80. So 120 is nothing but atrium systole, 80 by ventricular systole. So these, more than these blood pressure, that is nothing but more than 140 by 90. 140 by 90. It is what we are called as hypertension also. Hypertension. So another one is angina or angina pectoris. It is nothing but acute chest pain. So why it is acute chest pain? It is nothing but no enough oxygen is supplied. Enough oxygen is not supplied to the heart. It is also called as tightening of chest. That is angina pectoris. So another one is heart failure. It is nothing but the heart is not enough pumping the blood. Slowly the activity of heart is little bit decreased. So even heart failure is different from heart attack. So heart attack due to less supply of blood, The heart failure, stopping of working of those heart, that is heart failure. So these are the disorders which are related to circulation. So that in next class we discuss that is the next chapter. So thank you.